Good morning, friends, wherever you are, and welcome to today's Cichlids and Coffee. Hope you're having a good day wherever you are. Hope you're drinking your favorite beverage, as I am. How's the AV? How does that AV look? Am I getting a decent sound and picture? Let me know. Always helps. We have Kendall G in the house. R. Baglio. Crazy for Seahorses. Love that name. Whips World. Andy's in the house. Angelo, Kendall, Ex-Collie Kev in the jeans. Love these names. Hey, Denny. Good to see you there, buddy. GP and Whip, all wonderful moderators. Des says AV and audio are spot on. Thank you so much. Thank you, Larry, also. And GP, all give me a thumbs up on the AV. Hey, Jim. Thank you, Jim. Okay, excellent. So we can go ahead and get underway. We have I have a video walkthrough that's going to show you some of the new critters, and we're going to talk a little bit about filters, primarily based on a survey that I did at the community page. We'll talk a little bit about filtration, one of my favorite subjects, and let's go ahead and let me see if I can get the official kickoff. Here we go. All right, now we're off and running. So just a few very quick shout outs. Of course, always a shout out to my wonderful moderators, the folks that you see in blue with the little wrench next to their name. That is definitely the best moderators on YouTube. And a couple quick shout outs, of course, to my friends over at Aquarium Co-op. Thank you for all your help on the channel. They've been a big help to me, most recently with that planted aquarium that you see over my shoulder back here. It looks backwards on the monitor, but it's back here, and they've helped me with that project a lot. Thank you so much to my friends at Aquarium Co-op, Corey, Zenzo, and the gang. If you folks would like to help the channel in a very simple way, access Amazon by going to by using this link. It'll take you to my Amazon store. Then you can pop out of that and do whatever Amazon shopping you like. Certainly if you get something from the store, that's cool, but that gives a credit to the channel whenever you go to Amazon. So kind of a cool, simple way to support the channel without necessarily doing much. A very special shout out in today's live stream to my friend Josh over at Cunningham Tropicals, who set me up with that big shipment that you might have seen in my last video, the What's in the Box video. So thank you, Josh, if you're tuning in today. And that was very, very, very appreciated. We worked out a very good deal on those fish. The shipping was pretty steep. It was two very large boxes, $120 to get them overnight. But otherwise, I got a great deal on everything else. Now, I want to give a big shout out to my friends who are Patreon monthly supporters. My subscribers, those of you who watch the video, all help out tremendously by watching, commenting, giving a thumbs up, subscribing, and also sharing. But my monthly Patreon supporters help me out in ways that they don't know. It starts for as little as $3 a month, and really kind of keeps things going, and it helps to cover some of the emergency or things that need to be done, and also help me with trips. Now, talking about trips, it looks like I'm going to be speaking at the Chicago let me turn this volume down a little bit. It looks like I'm going to be speaking at the Chicago convention in November. I was looking at May, but there's been some conflicts in the schedule, so it looks like I'll be in Chicago for the Greater Chicago Cichlid convention there. I'll be there in May, so I'll be a guest speaker in November, originally scheduled for May. So I know I announced that previously, but it looks like it's going to be changing. So watch for that. So, after you get brand new fish, you wake up the next morning, and my wife was laughing at me because I couldn't sleep Thursday night. I was just kind of so excited about these fish that were coming, so I was pretty drowsy all day Friday. Maybe you noticed in the video, but it was like really truly like the day before Christmas for those of you who celebrate Christmas. But at any rate, when you get new fish, you go to the aquarium the next morning with your fingers crossed, because that really is they'll look good for the first few hours just off of the relief of being out of the bag. And so the next morning is really where you I came down the stairs kind of, holding my breath, but everybody looked good. I did lose one little Harlequin Rasbor, and I'm not sure if he died before he got stuck where I found him, or he got stuck and because he was stuck he died. I'm not really sure, but think about it. You ship a fish that's less than half an inch. He's in a box in a bag for 9 hours or whatever, or the time it took to get him from Josh to the airport, me to get to the airport, bring him back here, get him back. It's kind of amazing, right? That you don't have more DOAs. So I was very happy overall. You'll see. I've got a little walkthrough video for you that I'm going to share with you, and then after that we'll talk a little bit about filters, and I can answer your questions. And Whip, I'm not sure of the exact date. We're talking about different dates in November, but I'll announce it as soon as I know. Whip, you'll be the second one to know. I'll fire you a message, or you'll catch it on the next live stream. So let's take a look here at the fish and the fish that came in. And I'll talk a little bit about what's going on with them and some of the things I'm doing. And some of you saw the video on prepping the tank. I've gotten so many comments about different tips, from substrate to temperature to filtration to some of the comments were folks that didn't watch the entire video. In other words, telling me that I had to take the Expert-Matic, that power head filter out of the aquarium. Oh, that's not going to work. You've got that too much water flow for Discus. And of course, if they had watched the video a little bit longer, they would have seen that Expert-Matic was going to be taken out. But sometimes folks do that. They'll go off. They'll make a comment off of the thumbnail. They'll read the thumbnail, make a comment, or they'll watch the opening comments, the 2 or 3 open, and then make a comment. And in some cases, they'll make a comment under their comment. Oh, I should have watched longer. Now I see what you're doing. But in some cases, they make their comment and they leave, and it's a little bit out of context. And so I try to reply and go, hey, listen, if you watch a little bit longer, I did remove that Expert-Matic. It's too much flow for a tall, flat fish like a Discus. So at any rate, let's go ahead and look at this short little video I made for you that gets into the new fish. And let's do that right now. Let's take a look at the new fish, starting with the smaller ones. These are some Harlequin Rasboras. that are in quarantine. They'll be here for a month or more, depending what comes up. And there are also some little embers in here. And of course, these smaller fish will go into the 55-gallon planted community tank. They're doing well. One rasbora didn't make it. It got jammed between a sponge pre-filter and the wall. Now, I'm not sure if he died and then got stuck there, or got stuck there and then died because he was stuck. I'm not really sure. All I know is that's where I found him this morning. So there are 4 rasboras and 5 little ember tetras. Over here we have the eel, who has taken up residency inside of this plant pot. Not sure if you can see him in there resting. Sticks his little snout out every now and then, and seems pretty content and happy. He's sharing this side of the aquarium with a couple little red plecos that I brought over. And he'll stick his little face out. Can't really make him out right now. The gar just wedges himself at the top there and hasn't really come out and been active, and I haven't really seen him eat yet. So of all the fish, he's probably the one I'm most concerned about. Probably doesn't like this sort of tight setup that he's in quarantine, but I hope to see him swimming around a little bit. He just is kind of up here in the corner. Maybe I can get him to come out so at least you can see him. Well, the second I move, he goes right back up in the corner. Obviously very shy. I don't think you can make him out with the bubbles. Very pretty fish, but needs to get through quarantine before I put him in the big tank. Here's the 90-gallon. At some point, this might actually become the Discus tank. It'll take some, some thought and some planning, but this 90-gallon would make a great Discus tank. The redhead Tapajos. I call them my puppy dogs. And here's where the red embers and the rasboras will go. There are some little red embers in here already, and so they'll form up a little group. And of course I have some Harlequin rasboras in here as well, so I just love the way they school. This piece of wood is finally starting to drop down. It's starting to sink. I know some of you are saying, why don't you attach it to a rock, but it'll eventually find its way down. I keep getting baby plecos in this tank. Can you make out that little teeny guy there? Love them rummy nose. Wouldn't mind adding a few more of those. Recent plant additions are doing well. The one's here on this piece of wood. And right next door, I think they got a little spook from me walking around, but here you can see all 10 of the Discus. This morning they were swimming all over the place and they ate very, very well. Feeding them a combination of the Cunningham flakes and also some Sedenker, some special food for Discus from that I got from Super Cichlids. They all look really cute. They were very active this morning, ate well, ate both the flakes as they were floating and also pecked a lot of the sedenker off of the substrate. The plants seem to be doing okay despite the high heat. The aquarium is currently at 82.6 and will stay in the 80s for discus fish. I'm watching the plants closely, see how they react to the heat. May have to use different plants, maybe put in some val and some other plants that might be more resistive to heat. I'm very happy with the way these discus look and how active they were this morning. Perhaps in the live stream they'll be moving around more. Right now, because I walked in and started messing with things, they kind of panic and they all congregate right there in that little section. That's like their hiding spot. Fish in the 210 are doing great. Both the 210 and the 300 are due for maintenance. So that'll happen after today's live stream. Do a water change, clean up the glass. This tank I do a little vacuuming because of the type of substrate that's in it. It does hold on to detritus. So I'll do a little bit of a vacuuming, especially in this far area here where I can get a little bit of accumulation. I might be adding another wave maker to this side just to kind of get some of the poop and stuff just to work its way out of the substrate there and get taken up by the intakes of the filters. A lot like this big monster that I added, which I'm running actually vertically now. It just runs a very strong stream down the back of the aquarium. It creates a lot of circulation. This is that very large wave maker I got from Higer. It's fully programmable, including a setting that allows you to turn it off in the event of feeding, so the food isn't blown all over. But these fish are doing okay in this tank. I was a little concerned about this Venusis, but every now and then he's swimming around doing fine, so I'm just gonna let him be. With Fusco putting on size. I'm finally getting some of the some color out of this Buco. He was a little gray, and now he's starting to get a little bit of blue and green in the body. Bucochromis notitania, one of my favorite African cichlids. Big coengi, big trout. Water. So that's the update on the new fish. I'm looking forward to watching them put on size. I'm hoping that all 10 of them make it. You know, when you add discus, you know, the best, because they are delicate. But they seem to be doing okay. I'm going to be doing once or twice a week, 20% water change. Little vac. I'm going to be keeping this tank really clean, and hopefully they'll be more and more comfortable. All right. It looks like there was an encoding error going on during that presentation. Is it, does it look normal now that we're off of that video? because I was getting this error that said there may be an issue with the bit rate, the encoding bit rate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that into an actual video and then release it later. So if you want to see it like smooth, if you want to see it without stop motion, watch the upload later. But yeah, Kendall, I think there might have been a bit rate issue with that. So at any rate, but thank you for pointing that out. Okay, normal now. Thank you, Angela. Yeah, there might have been something. I'm not sure what it is. I'm going to check the settings, and sometimes things get a little overloaded here. All right, so I did a survey, but before I get into that survey result, let's talk a little bit about what's going on with those. The discus are being kept at over 82 degrees. Now, this is some of the advice I got. You know, keep your discus warm, and how that helps with both parasites, and also keeps them very comfortable. And you know, no chance of ick. I mean, when you're up there between 82 and 84, the ick doesn't really have a chance. And so there's a lot of reasons that convince me to go with the higher temp, even though when I checked with Josh, it sounded like he was keeping them at about 78 to 80, and so this is a bit of a higher temperature than they're used to, but I think they prefer it, and it made a lot of sense to me. Now that, of course, does give me concern if there's ever a blackout and we have cold weather. That temperature could drop relatively quickly, in a smaller aquarium. A lot slower to drop in bigger tanks, but in a smaller aquarium it can drop relatively quickly. But still, it's being kept at over 82 to 80 to 83, and that was one of the good tips I got. I'm feeding them some of this premium tropical flake from Cunningham Tropicals. Premium tropical flake, which, by the way, you can get 10% off on his food by using that code. And I'm also feeding him this original Stenker I picked up from Super Cichlids. I mentioned it in the video. This was formulated by a famous, I believe, German discus keeper, Stenker. Original Stenker granule formula. Has all the stuff that discus need. So, and they ate very, very well this morning, and that's one of the key things I look for on the next day, is how the fish eat. Of course, it's hard to tell how an eel eats, right? Because they kind of stay hidden and come out every now and then. When they get bigger, when the fire eels get bigger, they are more active and they'll hang out like a regular fish. But I notice when they're smaller, they like to stay kind of tucked up in caves and stuff. But I am just dropping a little bit of granular in there, and he'll find it. He'll find it when he feeds. But the discus ate really, really well. The rasboras and the embers ate like crazy. I dropped some of this Magic Nano Magic Nano from the Aquarium Co-op, and it is really, really good stuff. And the reason I like it is because it just sort of hangs in the water column. It doesn't drop really fast, and doesn't stay at the top where it actually just sort of stays a little bit below the water line, and then sort of just kind of drifts around like mist. And all the little nano fish are able to get into the food cloud and peck it. And so I'm really impressed with this nano feed from Aquarium Co-op. I wish that we had something a little bit like with the bigger fish, like in the mix I have from Northfin, and my own little mix that I make up, right, and I keep in this Sarah container. It seems like the food either floats or it drops. It doesn't seem to be it doesn't. But I love the way that nano food just sort of kind of hangs out midway. I was going to use some of this to add a little bit of extra beneficial bacteria to the Discus tank, but I decided I really didn't, because the tank has been in use for a long time, was pretty already kind of bacteria rich with the use of established media, and also with stability. If you read the instructions, it says that you're supposed to turn off UV. You can't really be using UV when you're when you're using it. So I decided I'd rather leave the UV on because of the benefits of the UV light, and the fish seem to be doing okay. And some of you are saying you can see them over my shoulder, and I've got a maybe we can. This is my beard cam. See, I'm growing in a beard, but let's use it to take a closer look at the aquariums. Let me see back there. Yeah, they're still kind of tucked up back there. They're tucked up behind the that little plant area. I'm just looking at them back there. Let's see. There, that's the beard cam, but we can use that to take a close-up look at the fish. Let's see here. Yeah, they're hiding. Unlike the fish in the planted tank that are all over the place. All right. So let's take up some of your questions. And YouTube has a thing now where they want us to insert where we want to have the ads. I'm going to try something here, and hopefully it's not going to disrupt the live stream. Let's try it. Hold on. Did that actually play an ad? Tell me in the comments. It's giving me these prompts. This would be a good time to insert an ad. And if I don't do it, what happens is when the video uploads, it uploads like 100 advertisements in the video, and it's just kind of crazy. So maybe this will give me an opportunity to place them in good spots. So anyway, did an ad play, or was it just usual? Okay, it disrupted the live stream. It did play an ad. So some of you got an ad and some of you got no ad? Okay, that's interesting. So some got an ad, some didn't get an ad. Well, that's right. If some of you have YouTube Premium, you're not going to get any ads. All right. All right. Very, very cool. Okay, so let's take a look at some of your questions. I'm going to scroll back a little bit and look at some of your comments and see if you have any questions or tips. I got a lot of great tips on the Discus tank, and I've been watching videos, and there's probably as many tips as there are people, but as many ways of doing it as there are Discus keepers. And I heard it ranged all the way from I treat them just like regular fish and I've been keeping them for years without any problems, to people who were saying, like, you got to swap out that substrate, you've got to do a water change every day, and you've got just extremes, one extreme to the other. Some people say use beef heart. Some people say avoid beef heart. Some people say they love bloodworms. Other people say don't ever use bloodworms because they'll get parasites. It's like, just so in the whole scheme of things, ultimately you have to make up your own mind about what you're going to do. And so I've been pulling from different places, in particular folks who obviously from their videos have many years of discus keeping experience, and that, so going to what I would call reliable sources. So, all right, let's see if you have any questions. Now, I suggest if you have a question, let me start it with ben.o.cichlid. That way it jumps out at me in the comments. So put my name and then put your question, and that way it'll jump out at me. Angelo just made an order from Aquarium Co-op. Very good. Very early for me. Ross, what time is it where you're at, Ross? 10 days in a row over 105 degrees in Melbourne. Wow, well, it is summer down there. My son was watching bicycle races that were going on in Melbourne because now the bicycle racing season has gone down to Melbourne, down to the southern hemisphere. 105, that's really, really hot. Fatty from halfway around the world, where are you, Fatty? Fatty Gantus. So I'm looking through the chat for questions. CC Custom Leatherworks, you will likely talk me into getting a discus tank set up. Always liked them, best of all. Had some once, but had very little knowledge of their proper care at the time. Well, you sound a lot like me, CC Custom Works, because I did have them. And before I got into African cichlids, I think just around the time that I started my YouTube channel, I had discus. And it was, they would grow to a certain point, and then they wouldn't really. I mean, I had them in a smaller tank, and I definitely did not have them at a high temp. I had them at about 75 to 78. So I was using like normal kind of fish care protocols without really doing enough of a deep dive into the needs of discus, and so my success was not that great. Cat Sailor, it's funny you asked that because I asked my wife to come down to the fish room, and it was just the reaction she had to the discus was, oh my God, how cute. And they're very cute little fish. Now, don't ever forget, they are cichlids, and they can be vicious. And the rule of thumb seems to be 1 for every 10 gallons. So, because they're very small, I've got 10 in there, but they're very small, right? But over time, what will probably happen, based on some of the comments I've read, is that you will get some dominant males that could become bullies. And at that point, you need to decide, do I want to keep the dominant male and perhaps have them pair up, or do I want to get rid of the more aggressive ones and end up with a very peaceful group? So they are definitely cichlids. But my wife loved them. She had a very cute reaction. She's always liked discus. She's always thought, she always would question me on why I keep aggressive fish, especially when we used to have a 150-gallon tank in the bedroom, and you'd hear these crazy splashes, and in the middle of the night, and she would go, why do you keep fish that fight each other? Why do you watch UFC? All right. So yeah, her reaction was very good. She loves Discus. This might be my my way to get a tank up into the main house. It's sneak a Discus up, sneak a Discus tank up there. Even though I honestly think that those Discus are eventually going to end up in the 90-gallon because they're going to need more room. I already have a UV sterilizer in the 90. It has great filtration. I have an unused sump and pump that I could add to the 90 for extra filtration. It has an ideal substrate. So that could end up being a Discus tank over time because they do get very large. They grow slowly, but they do get large. Sergio's thinking about keeping plecos. I tell you, Sergio, you're going to be going down quite a rabbit hole because there are so many kinds of plecos, beautiful plecos out there, right? Oranges and whites and reds and blues and just gorgeous, right? Phantoms and snowballs and anyway, so many beautiful plecos. I would stay away from the ones that get crazy big. I love bristle nose, right? They're also called bushy nose. I'm trying to separate out the red ones that are being born in my tanks. So eventually I'm going to have all red, maybe some albino in there. Also any ones that have any real nice spots I'll keep. The rest of them I take to the Aquatic Critter, and they give me a store credit. That's how I was able to get the plants and the Sea Chem stability with Pleco credit, and also a credit for that green tear. They gave me a credit for that green tear. But at any rate, I love the bushy nose. Very, very peaceful, and they do work. They do clean up. They do a good job on algae. They are messy. They have poops that are mind-boggling, 10 times the length of their body. So it's a trade-off. You'll have less algae, but you'll have ridiculous poops floating around your aquarium. Ex-Cali Kev, the Discus are sneaking out. Yeah, they were all over the place this morning. And I think I've got these lights, right? These what are called softbox lighting. They're pretty bright. So it's probably a little bit shocking for them. I'll film some more footage and get a video out that shows them swimming around. The Zach, the water changes that you need to do for the Discus are for a couple of reasons. One, of course, is that they need pristine water. You know me, I'm not that crazy about worrying about nitrates, but you feed them a lot. Because of the high temp, they run at a very high metabolism. And because of that, they are burning, man. They are burning fuel. So you've got to feed them at least minimum twice a day. And so that can create some pollution. And so you need those water changes. And a lot of folks suggest at least 20-25% twice a week. So that's a little bit why you do that. It's gotten a little warmer. Some of you are commenting on the weather. It's gotten a little warmer here in Nashville. I was actually out in a t-shirt yesterday, and a little cooler today. But we're up in the 50s, even the 60s. So we might be getting into a little bit of bicycle riding weather. All right. Any other comments? Go ahead and make them with, preferably with my name, so they pop out at me on the comments. Josh is getting a giant gourami. What size tank are you putting that in? Because a giant gourami becomes a giant. So you're probably putting him in 150 or larger, probably. Michael is asking about water changes in the 300. The 300 gets a water change every 2 weeks. It does get a top off in the sump in the alternating weeks, right? Like this week was a top off week, and I'll change the sock and top off the sump, and then the following week it'll get roughly about a 30%. 30% water. I don't do big, massive 95% water changes, and usually about 30%. If something's going on, like maybe there's a little growth on one of the fish, or there's something, maybe the fish are flashing, rubbing up against stuff, or something's going on, maybe I'll do a 70, as much as an 80%. I mean, it's a lot of water, 300 gallons, right? So at 30%, you've got, 100 gallons of water. So you got to really watch your water heater, because that's a lot of water. You can overtax your water heater. And so you got to be checking that temperature when you're doing that water change. But yeah, I would say about 30%. Excali Kev. I had a great time, my friend. I had my sons and my new daughter-in-law flew. My son flew in with his new daughter-in-law from San Francisco. My son flew in. Other son flew in from Fort Myers. I had my two daughters here, my granddaughters, my son-in-law. I had a great time. I had an old friend from California flew in, and we all went out to dinner. And my birthday was just perfect, and it was just great being surrounded by family and friends. My best friend here in Nashville had chest pain 2 days before the party, and he ended up having open heart surgery. So, when you get older and have older friends, that's the kind of stuff that happens. When you're younger, it's like somebody doesn't make it because they fell off their skateboard. Now it's, oh, yeah, Kip can't make it. He's getting open heart surgery. So thank God he's back home. They did a bypass and took out some stents. And anyway, it was just very scary, but he's okay. And anyway. Hey, Josh, in the house. Yeah, see, Josh is of that school of thought. With the discus, I treat them like normal fish and have had zero issues. So there you go. There you go. So it really depends. I mean, who you're talking to, and there are different strains of fish. There are different strains of fish. There are fish that have been bred, locally and with local water and bred for many generations at 78 degrees, and they're probably fine. And there are some fish that maybe if you get them, like maybe from Germany or something, they have to be at 82 to 85, even hotter, and otherwise they just start to. They start to really show a lot of distress. So you really got to find out what your provider is doing and what your provider is feeding them. Josh told me that he was feeding them flakes, and that's why I offered them some of this right away, some of the Josh tropical flakes, and they went after it. they went wild. They went after it, and I dropped in a little bit of the Stenker special mix, and they went after that too. But a lot of it went to the substrate, which they then picked off later. So I'm a little bit more inclined to go with the flakes because they go ahead and just consume those, and it doesn't end up on the substrate. Even though I'm not that concerned about the substrate, because like I said, I'm going to be doing a light surface vacuuming. You know me, I don't disrupt the substrate too much because that's where a lot of beneficial bacteria is, so I tend to leave it alone. But I will do a light surface substrate vacuuming as at least probably twice a week. So there you go. Okay, so hang in there, friends. YouTube is saying insert another ad. Well, this one is a little. This one's a little tough, Jagan. Am I pronouncing it right? Jagan from India. I mean, glass scratches. I mean, you can drop the water level, I guess, and you can remove glasses. I mean, you can remove scratches from glass, but sometimes the abrasives and the things that you need to use might not be good for your fish. I mean, you just might need to learn to live with it. This is why things like mag floats and cleaning the glass, you have to be super careful not to get any gravel on whatever it is that you're using, because it'll score the glass. It'll mark the glass. So once it happens, I mean, there are videos on YouTube, and take a look at them, see if it's something you want to try, or just simply learn to live with it. I've lived with scratch tanks, and it's annoying, but it's not the end of the world. Stratos loft. Yes, I've heard that some plants are very sensitive to higher temperatures, and so I am watching them carefully to see if they start losing, not melting back necessarily, because that's kind of normal when you put a plant in a new aquarium, but really just losing like entire stalks, right, and just sort of, especially the ones that are up against the heater. So I'm just watching that closely, but they seem to be doing okay. And so we'll see. Keeping an eye on that. Plants like fish have ideal temperatures. Now, Zach, are you talking about discus? Are you feeding discus bloodworms every other night for 10 years and no problems? That's amazing. Because the guy, Watley, I think there's a famous discus provider named Watley, and he had a video, and he said, whenever I get emails that involve parasites and discus wasting away, he said that always they're feeding bloodworms. He goes, that's the one thing. First question I ask is, are you feeding bloodworms? So that discouraged me from feeding bloodworms. But are you saying you feed them bloodworms every other night for 10 years and not a problem? I mean, that would be, again, I mean, there's just so much anecdotal information out there. It's wild. Nick, this is a pretty specialized question. And some pumps will detect a lower water level, especially some of your newer direct current pumps. They have the built-in technology to detect the lower water level and then shut off. The ones that don't will just keep going and burn out. So the only other thing, you can get a float. I had a float. It's almost like a basement flooding float that, and you insert it, and I remember I'm trying to think how I used it. Anyway, it was a float that if it got too low, it would shut the electricity off. So your pump was plugged into the float. There was a float plug-in unit, and then it went on to the power outlet. So when the float got too low, electricity was shut off to the pump. So you can do that. There are things like that. What I would suggest is call the guys over at BRS, Bulk Reef Supply. BRS, Bulk Reef Supply. They do everything with sumps. A little costly, a little expensive. So what you find out from them, you might buy from them, or maybe you might go and search and end up getting it on Amazon or something. But they'll talk to you and they'll give you advice. Bulk Reef Supply, and just tell them what you're trying to solve. But they do have like if you just Google power shut off float, you'll find it. You'll find one. What it is, when the water level gets to a certain level, it cuts off the juice. And so that could save your pump. I was using one in California, and if you go back to my old videos of the sump I had in California, I had one in that sump. So you can check that out. Now, better than that, I would suggest using one-way valves on your return line so that water can't siphon back. Use one-way valves. That would be more for a power outage. Now, scratch that last comment. I'm thinking, so no more water is coming in, like your water level got too low. No more water is coming into the sump. The pump has pumped all the water out. Yeah, you're gonna need something like a power shutoff float, or invest in a pump. And there are some inexpensive ones. The ones from China, that I've heard great reviews on, that are DC, direct current. So that might do it for you. There's a group, Eric. There's a Discus provider out there called Something Fishy. And I used to follow him back in California when I first was keeping Discus, and he was real big on beef heart and real big on UV sterilization, and really highly recommended, if you're going to keep Discus, have a UV sterilizer, and that's why I was real big on getting them. And when my first plan was to put Discus in the 90-gallon, that's why there's a UV sterilizer in there. Daniel says that he hasn't given his aquarium a water change. Because water changes, what are those? Hadn't given my tanks a water change in almost a year, and they are thriving. Now, when you make a comment like that, Daniel, you have to include other details, because it might not apply to everybody. What size tank? Is it heavily planted? What's your stocking level? Is it a dirted father fish style plant? Like what we need more details, because someone might see that and go, oh, okay, I'm not going to do any water changes. And they might have other problems. They might have a pH crash down the road. They might have other, because they haven't replaced buffering minerals. And so there's a lot of moving parts here. And a while back, I released a video about some of the controversy that surrounded the no water change video that was released by Father Fish, and how some folks were taking things just sort of at surface value, and just and going with it and running into some problems. So you have to put things in proper context. What size is the tank? Is it heavily planted? How is it stocked? What's your filtration? Right? And what conditioners are you using in the water? I mean, there's a lot of moving parts. But you're not doing water changes. You must be doing top offs, and that's another thing. How often are you topping off? Dave, you're not too far from me, but I'll tell you, just watch, if you watch that playlist, if maybe one of the moderators can share my Sump King of Filtration playlist, Dave Rice, you will watch the arc of my education in sumps, from complete terror and afraid that I was going to flood the house, to the confidence that my sumps are never going to flood. You'll see how that occurred. A 400-gallon drilled Peninsula. Now, for those of you not familiar, a Peninsula tank is a tank that has all of the filtration and overflow boxes on one side, so you can view through the tank. So it can, like, for example, come from a wall out into a living room, and you can view through the tank into another room. They're designed to be viewed that way. So you don't put a background on it. You don't do anything like that, right? A Peninsula tank, very beautiful, in the right setup, right? And the one I had in California was a Peninsula tank with an overflow box, an overflow tower on the right side of the aquarium. I ended up using it against a wall, so I put a background on it, but it was a Peninsula tank. And if you watch some of those videos, starting with the early ones in California, right 3 years ago, and then work your way forward, you'll get a lot of tips on what I did to keep that tank rock solid. And I'll tell you, I started off with the complete certainty that I was going to damage my wood floors. I did end up damaging some wood floors, and in my learning curve, and it cost me about $800. Oh, I'm not proud. Fadi is in Jordan. Very, very cool. Welcome, my friend. All right, I'm still cruising for questions. Any questions, go ahead. David Glass is asking me about glass. It really depends on your scene. I mean, glass is great, but at 400 gallons, you're getting into a tremendous amount of weight, because you're going to be needing 3/4 inch, 1 inch plates of glass. Think about that. On a 400-gallon tank, probably 7-8 feet across, depending on the dimensions, maybe 9-10 feet across. Very thick glass. Then you've got your glass top, your canopy, your water. You're going to be 5,000 pounds. So your acrylic tank is going to remove hundreds and hundreds of pounds of weight. If you ever need to move that tank, 4 guys can move a 400-gallon acrylic without a problem. 400-gallon glass, you're going to need massive suction cup and probably 8 people or a forklift. It depends where you're going to put it. And now, that being said, acrylic never fails. Acrylic is more see-through. Acrylic holds temperature better, is better insulated than glass. Can cost 2 to 3 times more, but you can get a used one very often, very cheap. Just watch for scratches. It does scratch easier, so you have to be real careful when you clean the inside and the outside. But a lot of again, a lot of moving parts. CC Custom Leatherworks. Ben Ochart, can angels and discus be kept together successfully? I have heard that the angels can end up getting picked on when the discus get very large. Again, keeping in mind that the discus are cichlids and can be bullied by the larger discus. And if you are going to be, I mean, you can go like Josh was talking about, keep your discus at 78 to 80, you should be fine. But if you want to run your discus at about 82, 83, that could be outside of the ideal parameters for angelfish. As of right now, and this can change, you know that, but as of right now, it is exclusively just a discus tank, what I'm keeping. So it's going to be a species specific. Will that change over time? Well, certainly when I come over to the 90, I'm not sure I would keep the Blue Congo Tetras because they're very fast moving and can outcompete too aggressively for food. Same thing with the redhead Tapajos. I'm not sure if I'd want redhead Tapajos. They're just a little bit too fast, and the discus are just very, when it comes to feeding, they're just very slow. They sneak up on the food. They get startled easily. So just some things to look at and consider. You may want to go. You may want to go species only. I mean, that's what I'm going to be doing at first, and see how they do. Peas and Haps Forever. I'm picking up 7 bristlenose albinos on Monday. Wow. Are you going to breed them? That sounds like a breeding project to me. If you were near Nashville, I would have given you some bristlenose for free. If you're in Middle Tennessee and you want some bristlenose plecos, come on by. I'll give you 4 or 5 to take home for free. Cat Sailor, speaking of giant gouramis, I bought a little bitty chocolate leopard gourami about 4 years ago, and it is larger than my hand. Wow. That was a surprise. I bet you he's really cute. Chocolate leopard gourami. Never even heard of him. Now he's the house boss. Wow, that's very cool, Cat Sailor. I'd love... Can you send me a picture? ben.o.cichlid at gmail.com. I don't think I've ever even heard of a chocolate leopard gourami. Sounds amazing. Daniel Ingalls. Am I pronouncing that, Daniel? Am I pronouncing it right? Daniel Ingalls. Or Engels. I run full food webs in each of my tanks. No water changes. Only clean the front glass. Deep sand substrate with dirt underneath. Wall-to-wall plants. basic air stones for circulation. Tanks are thriving. Yeah. Yep, that's like a father fish type of a setup. Wallstead, I know it kind of leans that way. Very cool. Very, very cool. Did you add some leaves from the local stream, right? A little dirt from the local stream, get some of that, some of those live critters in there. Pretty amazing. And that is a viable tank. Zach Arnold got a spiny eel sold to him as a tire track. I had a tire track eel, unfortunately lost him in a aquarium debacle while I was away and out of town. But tire tracks are really cute, great personality. Like a fire eel, they'll find a comfortable spot and poke their little snout out. And as they get more confident, they'll swim around a bit. But very cute. I'm not familiar with the spiny eel. Not sure how big they get. And I am not surprised that you got sold something that was marked incorrectly. Unfortunately, that's a common situation. Ex-colleague Kev, there's Discus Hans, yeah. And John and Lisa are relatively new to Discus, but yeah, they've got a successful Discus tank over at KG Tropicals. I lurk their live stream sometimes and comment. Been watching them for a long, long time. John was probably the person I watched the most when I was first getting into African cichlids. He was exclusively African cichlids in the beginning when he had his shop over in King George. Thus, KG for King George. You know, Fatty, that's a tough one because it really depends a lot on the temperament of the fish. Also depends on just how big those fish are going to get. I mean, if you have 18 Oscars in there, yeah, that's too small. If you have, redhead Tapajos, you have some Geos, you have maybe a chocolate. It depends on the mix of the fish. Also on the frequency of water changes. The size of your water changes, how much you're feeding. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of things to consider. For me to just say, like off the top of my head, your aquarium's too small or just right, or would be irresponsible. It would be inaccurate. I mean, I would need to know the type of fish and your maintenance schedule, your filtration, your water changes, things of that. All these things play a part. If you have viejas in there that are going to get up around 10 inches, you probably should have 6 to 7, 6 feet across, 25, 30 inches front to back, 200 gallons. Even with the discus, people were saying, look, if you want to go more than one discus for every 10 gallons, you can just increase your water changes. So again, you have all these moving parts to consider. So you can't really give a blanket answer. Daniel, I was referring earlier to check valves. The way I prevent flooding in my sumps is my return lines have one-way flow valves. So when the pumps are off, the water can come back. Plus, the return lines are that lock line. It's flexible lock line, and it's right near the top of it's right at the water line. So the siphon breaks real quick. So there's no chance of flooding the back siphon is going to stop almost immediately. And I use a return line with a hook in my 210, right? So it's a hook line that attaches to the back of the tank, and that one has a hole that's drilled right at the water line. So when it starts to back siphon, that hole will take in air right away, and so it's not going to flood. The siphon's going to break. So that's how I safeguard against flooding. And again, that's all covered in that siphon playlist. King of Filtration, Sumps, King of Filtration. Fatty, I like that. I like the fact that you have UV and two canisters. That's going to do a real good job keeping the parameters perfect for those fish. That's Sergio. That's something I'm just watching real carefully. I've heard people do have success with the high temp and plants, but they just have to watch them. And over time, some of them just waste away, and so they just don't buy that kind of plant anymore. And they keep mixing and matching. I've heard Jungle Val does okay. I've heard some Anubias do okay, right? You get these plants from these tropical areas, from these hot areas. So again, it's going to be a hit and miss, but I'll be watching and swapping out as time goes on. Fatty, you might want to put a pre-filter. Put a pre-filter on those canisters, and you'll stretch out that you're cleaning. I clean my canisters once a year because they have the pre-filters on them. So just something to consider. Also, you're not going to waste food that gets sucked up into the intake. The food will stick to the pre-filter, and the fish will come around and peck it off. So it's I love pre-filters. Daniel says he has 5 tanks and they're all set up father fish style. Let me tell you, I checked out Father Fish the other day. He was doing a live stream and his channel has blown up. I think he's got 270 subscribers, 270,000. Some massive amount of subscribers. I'm so happy for him. Because he's been at it a long time. He's a really good guy. I got to meet him at a Aquashella many years ago. Michael, my water hardness is medium to low. My pH is around 7. This is why I'm adding, this is why I add crushed coral to my African cichlid tank, fresh crushed coral. I buy bags of it from the aquarium co-op, and I put it in the sump to help with buffering. All right. Now, I was going to get into the survey, the filter survey, but as you can see, this live stream has gone completely out of control with your wonderful questions. So I think what I'll do is I'll take those survey answers and maybe include some of them in an upcoming video. So we'll do a different take on that. And did any of the Discus Are they still kind of startled from the light? Let me see here. Yep, they're all still tucked back there in the corner as far as I can tell. All right, well, I'll get you, I'm going to get you some more footage at some point. I'll get you some more video on them. But I really do appreciate all of you joining me on Saturday, spending an hour or more with me. Thank you so much to all of you for your tips on how to keep Discus. I've read them all. I've taken them to heart and going with the ones that make the most sense to me. And thank you to all of you who tune in and subscribe and give the videos a thumbs up and share the videos. And it's like I get like a couple hundred shares a month that people share the video. I get these statistics from YouTube. Who shared your video? Thank you to my Patreon members. Thank you to my moderators and all of you for tuning in. And even those of you who just tune in and lurk. And thank you, Josh, if you're still here. Your help is very, very appreciated. So with that being said, I think we will go ahead and wrap up today. You folks rock, my friends. Thank you so much for stopping by. Stay tuned, and we'll watch these discus grow together, along with the other fish I've gotten. And there's more in the future. I'm going to be picking up a sand diver and an Autopharynx tetrastigma. There are more fish in the future, so stay tuned, my friends. And that's it for me. Have a great weekend and a great week. I'll see you next week. That's it for me. Bye-bye.